Hello and welcome to Take You to School with Dr. Tom Pritchard. I am your co-host JP at John Posh from the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the star of the show, former WWE World Tag Team Champion, 8-time Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champion, one of the greatest trainers ever in the history of the business, the Doctor of Desire himself, Dr. Tom Pritchard. Dr. Tom, how you doing today, sir?
Couldn't be better today, John. It is a wonderful day, wonderful night. Things happen for a reason, and that's why we're here.
Nice. Sorry for the delay, everybody. My internet just crapped out, and who knows? Speculation. Who's responsible? But the internet was
You know what? You
crapping
know
out
what?
for
The
me.
universe has a hard way of showing its empathy and compassion, and at the same time, it also shows you what you do when you cross Mother Nature, John. So I think there was something that possibly you could look at, see what your part in this whole thing was.
Yes.
All right, so I've had a good night, as you could tell. Anyway,
Yeah. What's going on with the JPWA?
man, we had a really good promo class tonight, and I think everybody did a good job. So it's getting hot here. That's the crazy thing is when I tell everybody we don't have air, we don't have heat. The wintertime doesn't seem so bad for them, but summertime, man, it's about to get really hot here, scalding, if you will. Okay, it won't be that bad, but it's about to get hot. 80 degrees, 85, 90.
With the promo class, obviously, I think everybody famously knows like Dusty would be teaching promo class in FCW and NXT. Is it that same kind of
Yes,
mentality?
yes, it is. It's having fun, trying to explain how to have a conversation. And not that I know how to have a conversation by any stretch of the imagination, but at least I know how to tell stories. And yeah, it takes time if you've never done that and you have to talk for a minute. A lot of people freeze up and don't know what to do. So, promo class, you have to practice, 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 and practice some more. The only way to do it.
When you do that, like, are you the Dusty? Like, are you the guy that's sitting there in charge of what's
Well,
going
who
on?
else would be? Come on, just 1 second. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course
All
I'm the
right. All right.
Dusty. Yeah, yeah. Hold on.
But are you acting as Dusty, like, where he would throw in his little quips and stuff? Are you being the American Dream?
Let me just explain this.
Yeah.
Not only am I the American dream in that reference point, if you will, but I perform as the dream would perform too. I learned a lot from Dusty Rhodes, and he had a lot of fun during promo class, and that's what we're supposed to do. And yeah, I tell stories, and I'll do their promos for them the way I hear it and the way I see it. So yeah, I do the Dusty, and Dusty would have time. Dusty, that's the only way to know how to tell stories is to hear stories, and that's the way Dream did it, man. He was there. I learned so much just by traveling with him. He had such so many experiences, and we went somewhere one time, met him at the FCW, and from the time we got in the truck uh, into the studio and back to FCW again. I mean, he never stopped talking. We never stopped telling stories, and he would tell me stories, and I would ask him something, um, just to hear him talk and just to hear what he'd say next, because you didn't know if it was a lie or not, and you did. I didn't care, by God, not that the American Dream lied, but embellished, if you will. So I embellish on promo class too, and tonight was one of those breakthroughs in the sense that nobody had anything to say until I gave them a story. And some of these kids are staying at a house together. And this is the fifth week. We're about to end our fifth week. John, I had no idea they had a 24/7 championship going on in the house.
Really?
Right. Of course. And they brought it up at the end of promos today. I said, because I was asked, all right, I'm done. You guys have anything else you want to cut? Any promos? And I said, yeah, I got something to say. And the one guy came up and talked about the 24/7 promo, the 24/7 championship they have going on at the house. So I thought, there you go. You have something to tell me about. I don't care what it is. Just tell me a story for a
Yeah.
minute where I want to hear it and listen to it. So those are the kind of things that happen when you're sitting around telling stories or giving promos or giving ideas or suggestions. That could be fun or it could be a long, long night. And tonight was, I thought tonight was a very progressive session.
I know Ryan Katz took over for Dusty doing promo classes. I know you know Ryan a little bit, or probably know Ryan a little
I
bit.
met Ryan. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think he was having fun too. I wasn't around when Ryan was doing promo classes,
Right.
but yeah. It was all good.
I interviewed him a few weeks ago. He said you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable doing some of the promos.
Yes, you do. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to basically not really care what anybody else thinks, and hard to do sometimes, but we get there.
Topic at hand today, I want to talk about Tracy Smothers, your good old buddy Tracy Smothers. What's the first thing that comes to mind? I know you're smiling. What do you think about that crazy MFer?
Well, anybody who knew Tracy Smothers would smile when they hear his name. Anybody would. Um, but Tracy is a throwback to that old school mentality, and you had to have back. Man, look, when we grew up watching wrestling, uh, it was number one kind of insane to do that anyway. Not a whole lot of people like wrestling except wrestling fans. And I don't know if you've been maligned as a wrestling fan, but me,
Mm.
when I was growing up, yeah, you watch that phony stuff. Well, Tracy was a throwback from the old Tennessee guys, and uh, he had a lot of crazy in him, which was good. And he was authentic in being Tracy. He was that big raw bone, uh, I'll bite your nose off kind of guy. and and as insane as it is, it was pretty cool to have people like that around. I thought because you were living in this other um, universe, if you will, with guys like that. You know, the Dr. Jerry Grahams of the world, the Johnny Valentines of the world, or the Ultimate Warriors of the world. I'll throw him in there as far as being lunatics. And wrestling used to have a lot more lunatics than it does now. At least in the big companies, they had to have some lunatic. I think on your license that you had to fill out for the commission, it said, "Are you a regular lunatic, a medium lunatic, or are you full blown outrageous lunatic?" And Tracy was a full blown outrageous lunatic when he really got wound up. So uh, I had a lot of fun with Tracy. Had a infamous, I guess, infamous, as the three amigos would say, means you're even more famous than famous. You're famous than the famous when you're infamous. On the side of the road, grappling the gravel. You know, he was going to kill me. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to hurt me bad.
Yes.
Thank God he didn't. So I always smile when I hear Tracy's name. I always do, man. I had a good time. Really good time with him.
Ibsen says in prior shoots he said he was a ribber. Was he one in the WWF? Was it just Davey, Owen, and Fuji who were ribbers, or did Tracy pull some big ribs as well?
Well, I don't know what Tracy pulled in WWF, but Tracy was one of those guys who I guess he might. I don't know if he's really a big ribber or who he ribbed. He might have been ribbing in ECW, but when I was around him in Memphis or uh, Smoky Mountain or in WWE, I didn't see a whole lot of ribbing. But I used to rib him on the way to and from when we lived in Nashville. We would ride together from Nashville to Knoxville, working Smoky Mountain occasionally before we all moved this way. And I would poke the bear, not knowing it was actually, you know, big bad grizzly bear who was wounded. And you know, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And that daggone Ricky Morton, he's the one who egged it on. So I don't think Tracy pulled that many ribs.
No.
No, he might have, but I never saw him. Let me say that.
So, I know you're saying the grapple and the gravel, but just give us the. I know we've talked about this before, but give us the real details. I know Ricky Morton's egging it on, but
No,
what's
the real details were this. It was a point in time where Jim Cornette was working with Bill Watts with WCW, and that kind of pissed people off because they felt that he was going to leave and just take the bodies and the Rock and Roll Express over there and kind of leave everything behind. But that wasn't the intent from the beginning. We were the first ones to go over, and he planned on bringing others at the same time, just like he eventually did with WWF. But I forgot what egged it on a couple times in when we were driving from Nashville to Knoxville. Uh, I would say something, he'd say something back, and I would start playing, and Tracy would know if I was serious or not. And Ricky looked back at me one time when we stopped. He said, you're going to piss that boy off one really bad one day. I said, no, he knows I'm ribbon. But then we got to Smoky Mountain. We all moved here, and then we got the deal with WWF going up for SummerSlam. That was supposed to be a one-off deal, and they really wanted Jim Cornette. We knew that, and it just that he wound up where we had a match with Rock and Roll on Survivor Series, and coming back after Thanksgiving, Tracy had been in the territory and potatoing people and accidentally hurting people, not meaning to. It just happens sometimes. You go on a streak, and we got back, and I was being a smartass after we ate at Cracker Barrel, riding with the Rock and Roll Express. Another pair of smartasses, Robert Gibson and Ricky Martin. They were both smartasses. Right. Anyway, but Ricky Martin could dance. Anyway, remember when him and Robert were a team? Yeah. All right. So anyway, and we're traveling down, and I forget what was said before I said this. I said, Tracy is careless or reckless or whatever I said, that there just really was stupid because I was playing, but it was being a smart ass. And and we got to the town that night, and 2 separate dressing rooms, and Ricky was over there egging it on, man. And we had a battle royal that night, had an angle all laid out, and got to the ring, and Tracy didn't want to cooperate. He was going to kill me. And I told him, let him go and kill me now. Let's get it over with, because I didn't want the past to hang over us. I just wanted to get it over with. And we were supposed to start an angle 2. With Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy against Jimmy Del Rey and myself. And, man, we got to the ring, and Tracy went right after me, and the boys pulled him off. And anyway, on the ride home, I'm riding with Brian Lee, and we meet up, see him on the side of the road. We pull over, and Tracy's going to kill me. And he had hurt his ankle also that night in the Battle Royal or in his previous match. I don't know. But long and short of it, John, since we have to bring it up, is we went to lock up when Tracy's going to kill me. Instead of actually punching each other, we lock up like it's a work. Oh, my God, man, come on. So I knew he didn't want to fight. I didn't want to fight. And the cops actually did pull over that night and ask what we were doing. And I think it was Tracy, or it might have been Ricky Morton, who said, well, we wrestled down the road here, and we just want to pull off and try a couple spots here. And the cop looked at us and said, not in my county, you're not. You got 15 seconds to get out of here. You're all going to jail. So we all fired it up, went on our merry way. And I went back home to Knoxville and called Jim Cornette and said, Jim, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to work with him because he's crazy and he wants to kill me. So anyway, I went the next day and for promos, and I apologized, and all is good in the world. And Tracy didn't want to hurt me, and I'm glad. So, but Tracy was one of those guys when he was a wild-eyed Southern boy. That was him. I mean, he had those crazy eyes. He had that crazy disposition in life, and he was authentic. He was from Tennessee and proud of it, and so was a Dirty White Boy. But they would have made a great team, and they did make a great team at one time.
Now, this may apply to Tracy, may not. For Mike Fry, Dr. Tom Pritchard, what was your favorite feud? Was it with Tracy and Tony Anthony, or maybe was Rock and Roll Express?
Well, first of all, Mike, I would suggest taking the T out of Pritchard, put it on your back at ProWrestlingTees.com if you would, but that's okay. I'll just
yeah, perfect, nice.
There you go, thank you. My favorite angle, I think, feud would have to be with the Rock and Roll Express, and because it was a lot of fun, and it was out there just working the towns where you had real wrestling fans who wanted to scream and yell and boo the bad guys, cheer the good guys, and have a good time. And that kind of brought back a lot of memories.
Ivan says hi. Hello, Ivan. Nice.
Well,
Freddie
Ivan
Santos.
Santos, yeah. So, um, and when Tracy came up as Freddie Joe Floyd, I'd never got that one until I found out it was Jack's and Jerry's name, and so that was that.
Really? That's the reason behind that name? I didn't know that.
Freddie Joe Floyd. Yeah, you didn't know that?
No. What the hell? That's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. Floyd Briscoe, Freddie Joe. Yeah, you know that's Briscoe's real name.
Oh, I for some reason Freddie drove. That never clicked. Wow, weird.
I thought you knew all these inside.
No,
Okay,
no, damn.
maybe not.
That
Okay, yeah.
somehow that missed me, skipped me. I guess. Wow, that's weird.
I can't be everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that Tracy would really have kicked your ass, like in a real fight?
Probably. If he was mad enough, I think Tracy could beat anybody's ass, and he sure could beat mine. I didn't want to fight. Didn't want to fight. Wasn't ready to fight. I'm just glad he didn't. We wasn't ready to fight either. So
This guy's wrestling bears here. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
that's
he's
my
not gonna-
point.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's my point. He's wrestling bears. He enjoyed it. I don't want to wrestle a bear. I don't want to have it slobbering on me. I don't want to have it leaning on me. It can hurt you no matter what. It can pounce on you. And he liked wrestling the bears. He thought it was funny. He did it backstage, and he would piss the bear off for whoever he had to work with later. Herb.
Yes, Herb.
Yeah, well, we Herb Simmons last time when we were in Henderson, Tennessee during the night, we had a blizzard. It took me like 11 hours to get home. We sat there telling stories pretty much all night long, and could have told some old Tracy Smothers stories, but I don't know if the statute of limitations are up yet.
Well, he passed away. I think you could tell them. No.
Yeah, probably, but I mean, it would serve no one. It would serve no one, and I don't think it would do anybody any good.
Bill Romanowski. Tracy is in my top 10 all-time favorite wrestlers. I wonder if that's the Bill Romanowski. You think?
Who?
Bill
If it's who?
Romanowski. Yeah,
Romanowski?
yeah, you think it's him?
Could be. You never know. We have a diverse audience out here. I think we have 15 people listening now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, all at one time.
Tom, how was Tracy Smothers in the WWF? You were teaming with Skip when he was there in '96. Was he down to earth? And then again, he was asking about the Ribbon the Boys and stuff.
Oh, no. Tracy was one of the most down to earth people. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, seriously, I think he was pretty down to earth. But you have to remember, when he was talking about he'd had how many concussions, that wasn't a rib. He'd been hit in the head a few times. He'd been kicked in the head a few times. So he had some lingering memories from matches that affected his behavior sometimes. So, but I think it was certainly one of the nicest guys. And I don't believe he was a ribber around the boys in WWF at that time. Just it doesn't fit him. Not from what I know.
With Tracy and the WWF, did he fit in there? Because it almost felt like he didn't quite fit in there.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who were there who didn't quite fit in. So, you had look. A lot of people don't get this, don't believe this. When I say a lot of people, I'm talking about the guys in Smoky Mountain. They thought it was just that Cornette could keep Smoky Mountain alive and keep the territory going down here in Knoxville and Kentucky and around surrounding areas. But times were changing. And Jim looked at, first of all, he was going to do it with WCW. Then that went south. And then WWF came along and offered the deal with Yokozuna and also helping rotate talent in and out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, help both places. Like Smoky Mountain would be a developmental territory, so to speak. And Tracy and a couple other people would get upset when they weren't figured in, but they were figured in, and they got an opportunity to come in. They got their foot in the door just like everybody else did. We weren't getting any special treatment. You know, it was up to us, but Tracy came in as Freddie Joe Floyd, and then you had TL Hopper and the Goon and some other people, you know, Duke Drosy and stuff like that. So I don't know if they fit in. It was kind of a weird time in between, right before, you know, it was the new generation right before the Attitude Era. And there was a lot of guys who were trying to find a way to fit in and trying to find how to connect the dots and stuff like that. And different time, different place. But yeah, I think most of the guys that came from Smoky Mountain or any place else at that time who didn't have anybody pulling for them, you're going to feel out of place. I think, again, the guys that came from Smoky Mountain, like Glenn Jacobs, you know, God, look at the guy. So you had to have something special. It wasn't just because you came from Smoky Mountain they were going to condemn you. You had to show them that you had something they wanted.
So obviously, you're training guys in '96, or you know, eventually you're going to be training some guys. Did Tracy ever give some input, or did he ever do some training and stuff with you? Because obviously in ECW he kind of was the unheralded, or nobody said anything about it, but he would train a lot of the guys before the shows.
I don't recall that. No, I don't think Tracy did. He didn't. Trying to think, around '96. That was his Funkin' Dojo in and out of that. He might have gone to. Did he ever go to OVW? I don't know if he did or not, and help out. But I think that was his calling later on for sure, and helping with ECW would certainly make sense. And we're missing a guy like that today. We're missing a guy like Tracy Smothers who knows how to get in there and make you have fun, work around, and not you'll forget. Let me say it like this: I forgot when I would get in the ring with him, and even when we're working, you didn't. John, I have to say this one more time. Blessed Saint. Again, take the T out of Pritchard, please, and put it on your back. ProWrestlingTees.com.
Yes.
They'll help you with that. And anyway, Tracy would make it fun and flow and take you where he felt needed to go. And anyway, he was a lot of fun to work with and train with. I would think he would be a lot of fun to train with.
Matt R says, did Tracy have any thoughts on that Freddie Joe Floyd name, or was he indifferent to it? Did he care for the name?
I really never heard him say either way. So I think he was happy to be there, and I think he was. I believe everybody respected Tracy when it came to WWE and understood why they needed to change the name. I wish you could tell me because I never understood, but I think he was indifferent. I think he was happy to be there and do his thing.
To me, though, it's like, okay, he would fit, but like the name was so Southern and just so strange that you didn't ever really could take that character seriously. To me, anyway.
Now hold on. You just hold it. You just said he was so Southern and you couldn't take it serious because he was so Southern. That daggum Stone Cold Austin, he was Southern too, by God. And so was,
but they made him such like jokey, cartoony. Like, you know what I mean? He's not Steve Austin here. I mean, they just made him too cartoony.
Well, did they make him too cartoony, or was Freddie Joe Floyd just being too cartoony on his own? I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I think you had to know. And well, thank you, Blessed Saint.
Yes, Blessed Saint. Nice.
And Blessed Saint. I remember. Anyway, no, I think Tracy was wanting to be too cartoony and just having fun, and by that time, you realized this is what we're going to do, and it was up to anybody who was there at that time to change it, and I don't think Tracy wanted to take do the extra effort, quite honestly, because you had to do a lot of extra effort to get people to notice you, especially when you're from the South, and especially when you're too Southern, especially when all this stuff happens, because that is exactly the attitude that was going on, I'm sure.
Speaking of being too Southern, your brother says Vince isn't much for having these Southern guys on TV, like Jim
What?
Ross being quote unquote too Southern. You know,
What?
why put them on the roster and do that if Vince really
That's
doesn't care for the Southern guys?
why I ought to. I've never heard that before. This is the first time I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
No, I know. I think Vince and whoever else and Bruce understands, and JR definitely understands. If you're talented, you're talented. I mean, Stone Cold had a Southern accent, no doubt about it. And there's a lot of guys who were Southern who could get over, but again, it's an attitude thing, and it's a mind game with how you approach what you want. You have to have an idea for who you are. Hulk Hogan had an idea who Hulk Hogan was before he got to WWE. He just got to accent it and turn it up even louder. But he was cooperative. It was a cooperative deal, and Tracy wasn't figured in, obviously. But I don't know if it has anything about Southern people. That would be kind of crazy because you'd be eliminating a lot of guys out there who could really talk or go. You know, Dusty Rhodes, he was a Southern man, and he made event of Madison Square Garden on many of occasions, if you will. You know, so you could have something to do with it, but at the same time, if you know how to fix it, fix it.
Hey, Hogan's a Southern boy too. He's really a Florida boy. Now they pretend he's from California, but he's a Florida boy.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So it's what you make of it, I guess. And Tracy made what he did.
With Tracy, like just going all the way back, when did you first meet him? Was it 85 or that era? Was it in Continental?
Um, I might have been in Memphis. Whatever run I did in Memphis, whenever I was in Memphis, but around that time.
Oh, it was 85 in Memphis. Okay. Yep.
Well, I was 85 Memphis. I think I was in Portland in 85. The reason I believe I was in Portland in 1985 is because Van Halen came out with their album 1985, and I remember listening to it on my way to Portland. So was it 85? Or I don't know.
Because you guys were involved in a match in 85. Billy Joe Travis, of all people, and Tracy Smothers defeat you and Pat Rose. Because remember,
No, that could have never happened. We never lost in Memphis. Okay, yeah, so it was 85. That's probably where I first met him. And going on that note, Billy Joe Travis, I mean, my gosh, does anybody know about Billy Joe Travis north of the Mason-Dixon line?
I feel like they should. They better.
Well, they better, but whether they do or not, here's my point. Billy Joe Travis was a legend down here in the South, but he would go up there to New York and be an enhancement talent. And then when he'd come down here, people would know him from being an enhancement talent on New York, and they revered him. They loved him. You know, in Memphis, he was a big star in the locker room because they'd seen him on New York TV. So, and he was a good friend of Jeff Jarrett's, and talented, and all those guys. I mean, from Eddie Gilbert, Tracy Smothers, Doug Gilbert, Freddie Joe Floyd, whatever, Billy Joe Travis, all those guys I met in Memphis, and they all had that same mentality of Ron and Don Wright, the Fargo brothers, and that attitude of yeehaw, this is Southern wrestling, and we're going to whoop your ass. That's how Tracy Smothers took it day by day. And by God, he meant it. Every time I walked in the locker room to do the shadow boxing, I'd always wonder he'd be hitting the lockers, and I'm going, oh geez, who'd he piss off now? So anyway,
did you like him at first, and did he like you when you?
Yeah, we got along great. You know why? We just did. He was one of those guys who you may find this hard to believe, but I have an affection for weirdos and strange and the obscure and secluded and eluded as well. I want to find out what makes those guys tick, and want to make sure I can identify them if they come looking.
The wild-eyed Southern boy.
He was a wild-eyed Southern boy. He and Steve Armstrong were both wild-eyed Southern boys, and they fit the gimmick because it wasn't a gimmick. Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers were two crazy boys, just like the Von Erichs. I've heard the description of Von Erichs. They were just wild Comanches when they got in the ring, and would just knock the living hell out of you. But there was a charisma, there was a work factor, and Tracy had that. At one time when he was coming up, he did have fire. He did have that charisma, and people believed when he got hot, he was about to kick ass. So that's something I don't believe you can teach. You can talk about it and lead someone to watch a guy like Tracy Smothers and learn how to be fiery and learn how to have that passion. But I don't really think you can teach it. You can offer them a demonstration and see if they can finagle it into their character.
You guys, I guess, rekindled again in Smoky Mountain, right? That's where you kind of met again and really the relationship blossomed outside of the grapple and gravel, of course.
Well, that was when the grapple and gravel. But yeah, but I've seen him through the years, different places, and every time it was always a lot of fun. Tracy never shied away from having fun either. He really was a lot of fun.
D-Rock, I heard a story about Tracy was ready to take on the police dogs when the police showed up during an event for a disturbance. Have you heard this?
No, but that doesn't surprise me one bit. That's come on, I'll beat your dog's ass. Come on. Well, Tracy, come on. Now, wait a minute. I don't think the dog plays fair. I think he's got sharper teeth than you. So I don't see him backing down. Hell, like I said, he'd wrestle a bear sometimes twice backstage. You think he's worried about a little puppy dog? Even if it's a German Shepherd that's going to tear you up, he didn't care. But that sounds like Tracy, by all means.
Why did he have no problem? Like, for instance, here, which I totally believe this literally falls in line with everything I've heard about him, that he would take on police dogs. Like, why did he want to fight like bears and like? Does he just have no fear? I mean, what was going on?
Well, have you ever met Tracy? Did
Yeah.
you meet?
Yeah,
so you met
years
Tracy.
ago. Yeah,
years ago. So what was your impression when you
Like,
first
man,
met him?
this guy is he's a little out there. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Nice as hell though. Nice guy.
That's very, very judgmental. This guy
In a good way though. In a good
Well,
way. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but it's still judgmental. You're still making a judgment call on him being out there. See, some people say I'm out there, and definitely, certainly, we were in the same universe. We were in the same atmosphere, and or stratosphere, or whatever that's called. But when you meet him, even when I met him, I'm going, yeah, I can see where I want to make sure that his plate keeps spinning, because once it stops, it's going to crash, and and it won't be pretty. So I tried to get out of the way before that happened, and I think it was just the fact that he liked testing himself, and there's no better test about how tough you are, I guess, in his eyes and his mind. And a lot of other people just watching, going, God dang, you see what it did to that bear? Oh, wait a minute, I got to work with him a couple matches down the road here. So it just piss off the bear, whoever. So whenever he got in the ring against the heel, you wouldn't work with him. Tracy already pissed him off. I think it was just the way he was made, the way he was wired. You wouldn't want to wrestle a bear, right?
No.
See, no, I wouldn't want to wrestle a bear either. So I think Tracy Smothers just marched to the beat of a different drummer, if I could use that cliche.
So you get like the crazy Tracy, but then you get the mentor, teacher, like role model Tracy too, because he'd take all the ECW guys to the young guys before the show. He would train them in the ring, teach them what to do, teach them how to work. And then also years later, IWA Mid-South, all the indies, he would take Chris Hero, everybody knows him, and all these other guys, and help them along. So very interesting guy. I mean, he just loved the business.
I think you love the business, and I think you have veterans like that. I don't know if there's that many
Definitely
anymore
not.
who
No.
who definitely care about it enough to say, hey guys, come out before the show. You guys want to learn, or can I show you something? So, for that part, he did care, and he was a great mentor and a coach, no doubt. Later on, it was sad because the last time I did see him was at the Bobby Eaton gratitude show, and I didn't recognize him. So
Wow.
that was sad. Yeah, that was sad. And I think the cool thing about that though is knowing that he had lived a full life and knowing that he was okay with what was coming down the road. I truly believe he had come to grips with what was about to happen. And I don't know that he never said that to me, but I got that idea. He was walking with a stick, like a big walking stick, like a mountain man would do. And he was Tracy till the end. He just was too sick to do it physically. But he was that guy, yeah, even at the end, I think that was glad he got to do it his way. So I think that says a lot about him too, his character. And uh, I don't know a whole lot of other guys who would take it upon themselves to work with some of those crazy guys in ECW, because while Tracy might have been crazy, you have to admit ECW was a little bit on the verge too of, you know, one of Saturn's rings going
Yeah.
around
Right.
way out there. So
What do you think though is like the legacy of Tracy? Just looking back, is great worker, great career, but also he's a good friend of yours. So what do you think overall of Tracy?
okay, well, here's one thing that came into my mind years ago, even when I first met Tracy. There was a guy named Whisker Savage in Texas, and Texas has Whisker Savage, Tennessee has whatever, and all the other states have their heroes and their legends and mythological creatures, I guess. And Whisker Savage was one of those guys who would come downtown to Houston, in the 30s and 40s, barefoot with his pig, and people would buy into it because he was authentic. He was an authentic mountain man. But his name was Ed Civil. He was an ex-boxer, and they found him, and he'd been to Oregon, been a few places in the Northwest, and they finally found a gimmick that he could fit into. I think the legacy of Tracy Smothers is he was that guy. If you think of Tennessee wrestling, yeah, you got Lawler, the Fargos and the Fabs and um, the Wrights and things like that. But add to that Tracy Smothers. He's in that list. He's on that list of guys who, uh, man, I remember he wrestled a bear not once but twice backstage. Those guys who still remember seeing him do that and being, yes, you asked earlier, was he fearless? I think he was. I just really think he didn't believe there was anything in this world to be afraid of. Um, they can't eat you. No, but nobody gets out alive. So he just accepted the fact. And if it was that day that he wrestled the bear backstage that he was going to have to leave, as in die, he didn't care. That's how he approached it. And I think that's how a lot of people go through life and approach it with no fear whatsoever, man. What's going to happen is meant to happen, and that's the way to look at it. I think even until the end, when Tracy he got really sick and had to go back in the hospital, um, nobody knew how serious it was. I don't think Tracy knew how serious it was, and was just ready for the inevitable to happen. I think his legacy is that he finally came to grips with it and understood that this happens in life to people, and he was one of the people that was what was going to be his legacy. He faced it throughout and did what he could do up until the time he couldn't, and he's fondly remembered today because of it.
Did you enjoy working with him and wrestling him? Because you did say he potatoed some guys and was a little stiff. Did you
Listen,
like?
there were times when, when I didn't want to work with him because he could be a little rambunctious, and that's okay. But other times we had great matches, and he pile drived me through a table in Knoxville. It's out there. It was Jimmy and I against Tracy and the White Boy, and we had a spot set up to where Tracy was going to, or White Boy was going to shoot me into Tracy, give me a backdrop on the table. It's supposed to break. Didn't break. I just slid right off. And so we needed a big spot. And Jimmy comes around and says, we need something. And Tracy just took it upon himself. The intuition right there was pile driving me through the table. And we broke it. And this was before you gimmick the table and stuff like that. So I enjoyed that. He was safe there, and he was safe most of the time. But we all get rambunctious sometimes. We all throw potatoes. So for the most part, though, I really did. I enjoyed working with him.
Let's take some random questions here. Sean Bender, any word on Windham returning to the ring? I know he's not talking about Barry Windham, even though
No.
I was hoping he meant Barry Windham, but he does not.
No. I have not heard. And I got to tell you this, too, on that. I respect Wyndham Rotundo incredibly because he's doing it his way, and when he doesn't feel it, he's not forcing it, and more power to him. But I have not heard anything as far as he's concerned returning to the ring.
Interesting though with him. Do you think that he's bound to come back to WWE because he's not working AEW, he's not working Impact, he's not working anywhere? I know he's trying to do some movie stuff. Does that mean he's on his way back to WWE?
Not necessarily. The thing about him, speaking of Wyndham, is he certainly lives by his own rules and marches to his own beat. And he's done that for a while now. And I've always said anybody who gets a tattoo of something, puts it on their body, that's demonstrating how passionate and intense you are about that, whatever it may be. And he's been that way for a long, long time. He's a lot deeper than people think. But he also knows that the world's a work. so he gets it when I feel, this is just my opinion, but I think he gets it when life's not meant to be taken that seriously. And he made some good money. He did some good things. But if you're not having fun doing it, all the money in the world doesn't really mean anything. I truly believe he feels that way. And well, I've heard the expression, money can't buy me happiness, but I pull the boat right up next to it. Great. But I think Wyndham's got other priorities in life, and he's going to do what he feels is right for him and his family.
Very weird that they just cut him in general. I know they're saying there was some like mental stuff going on, and he missed some shows, but he was such a hot merchandise seller. You'd figure they'd never release somebody like that. You know what I mean? Like sells that much merch.
Yeah, but think of it this way. Again, if you're not happy or you're not feeling it, and all of a
Happy to
sudden,
go, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. If you're not feeling what's happening in whatever they want you to do or what you're doing, and you just can't you're not living the way you want to live. Doesn't matter how much money you're making. Doesn't matter how much merchandise you're selling. If you don't want to be on the road every day, or you don't want to do personal appearances, or you don't want to do other things, or something happened and you just go, man, I respect the hell out of people who can walk away like that. I respect the hell out of people who can say, I've got all this equity built up and I'm a hot property right now, but I'm not digging going out doing these late night shoots or the early morning shoots or these appearances. I'm burned out. You got to admit, if you're a number one merchandise seller and you're a star on TV, you're in demand for interviews, appearances, signings, uh, miscellaneous task. So you don't know what's going on inside his head. I do know that happiness seems to be a priority with him.
Was there a moment when beautiful Bobby Eaton said something that surprised you? Like, were you thinking, like, wow, I can't believe that came out of Bobby's mouth?
When Bobby had a heart attack, he had this a young man named Brad. Anyway, take care of him. And I'm trying to think of Brad's last name right now. But anyway, as Brad is telling Bobby, please, I don't want you to die. Please, you got to take care of yourself, Bobby said. And this was from Brad because Brad was crying and very emotional. And Bobby would never say this. This is so uncharacteristic. Brad said he looked at him in his eyes and he said, "Oh, cry me a river." Just really out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not Bobby Eaton. So he was definitely sedated or coming around or on something while this was in the hospital. And Bobby it was touch and go for a long time. So that was one thing, I guess.
Jeff says, I bet Bobby was fun to be around. I wish I would have met him. Yeah, it seems like it.
Bobby was fun to be around because he was the guy who would say less but get the most out of everything he said and did because of his expression and because he was such a nice guy. But he could also tell stories and he could also laugh and yeah, he was a lot of fun to be around. That one night, real quick, Bobby Eaton, Ricky Morton, and myself were driving back from a town, and we were in Bobby's car. His lights went out, so we're still driving with the parking lights. His main lights, headlights went out, but he had parking lights, and we're driving down the road, playing the wrestler's name game. You know how that works, right?
Isn't that something with the last name, and then you have
Yep.
to?
In the first name and all that stuff. Well, Ricky Morton is cheating left and right. And we'll go to a name. He goes, Ricardo Gonzalez. That's not a name. Yeah, man. I worked with him down in Texas about, okay. And that happened about 5 times. Like, no, we haven't heard of this. But Ricky kept going. And it was, Bobby kept calling him saying, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. But it was funny because Ricky cheats and we knew it and we let him cheat.
That's Ricky for you. Yep.
It is Ricky for you. Thank you. This is live, Eric Todd.
Yes, Eric Todd. It is live. Yes, that is true. It's live.
Yes.
I worked with Bob Eaton a few years ago for Midnight Express reunion. I brought in Cornette, Condrey, Lane, Eaton, the whole and
Yes.
Ricky and Robert, all the crew. But Bob Eaton is so funny. I'm like, oh, Bobby. I go, no offense to the rest of the guys. I said, you're the best. He's such a good worker. Man, he got so shy and so humble. He goes, no. He goes, tell those guys. And like he didn't want to hear it. I said, no. I was like, you're one of the best. I love Bob Eaton, one of my all-time favorites. He didn't want to hear it. It was so weird. And then later on, Cornette did a one-man show. Bobby showed up, and he's like, Bob Eaton, everybody, and like he's like, no, Jimmy, no.
Yeah,
too humble.
Yeah, that was Bobby, and that was Bobby all the time. It really was, man. And yeah, I haven't met anybody like him since then or since.
Such a smooth worker. Oh, here's a good question for you. Here, look at this from Channel Now. What do you think of Disco Inferno? Wow, that's a good one.
That's a good one. I've met him. I think I know once, and that was at TNA when we went down for a top secret tryout that didn't really happen. But I won't get into that right now. I like Disco Inferno. I think he's a great character. I like the gimmick, so I like it.
He's a bit of a lightning rod online because a lot of his views and stuff. Although he is right a lot of the time. I mean, but people, man, they get fired up with him.
Look, in the world we live in, this is such horseshit. Cancel horseshit is what I think. And to be a lightning rod, I guess, is a good thing. I personally don't want to hear it. I personally don't want to get mired or drugged through the muck where the gutters and the garbage and the trash and uh, the horror of it all. You know, disco can say what he wants. Anybody can say what they want. I can agree or disagree, and so can you. But I don't care what you think because it's my world. I'm living my life. That's what I would say to disco if anybody asked.
One of the greatest workers can make anybody look good without being a detriment to himself. Wow, that's high praise for Disco there. Wow.
I agree. I mean, I would agree. I've seen him wrestle, well, of course, many times, and again, he keeps himself in shape. I love the gimmick. I thought he did a hell of a job.
You know, we were talking about great punches, Bob Cook,
Mm.
and for some reason, Kevin Sullivan said great kabuki, which was crazy, but, you know, to each his own as far as loving the great punches. But Disco Inferno, and obviously Lawler too, but Disco Inferno had a great punch.
Yeah, he had a great. His presentation was very good for a heel or a babyface. I think it could have worked either way, but his natural disposition certainly is better as a heel. That's what I think.
Did Ricky Morton ever live in Philly? My friend swears he used to come into the bar about 25 years ago. Did Ricky Morton ever live in Philadelphia?
I think he lived in Philadelphia for about a month one night.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. Ricky pops up in the strangest places sometimes. So maybe he did. Maybe he was hanging out with a friend. Who knows? And then
Arn
again, there's a lot of
Anderson.
guys that look like Ricky Morton.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Arn Anderson told me a great story about Mongo. He said they were in Philly one night. Mongo never came back.
Never came back. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I wasn't really familiar with the row houses. I mean, you uh how they were set up and when you go in. Well, I met some people in Philadelphia through some other people in Philadelphia and went over to a row house.
Hmm.
And I thought, how does this work? It's small, it's narrow, it's to me it was small and narrow. Maybe it was just late. I don't know, but I could see how you could get lost. Is my point in Philadelphia and never come back. Of all the things I've ever lost, I miss my mind the most.
Yes, I like
Yes.
that. That's a good line. Yeah. Road
Yeah.
Warrior had a great punch. Look at that. Anthony throwing a little bit.
Well, yeah, they did. The Road Warrior Hawk and Animal, they both, but they really didn't need to punch because if they punched you, you should be dead or at
Right.
least knocked out. So that's kind of where you lose me there.
There was a good question in here from Herb. Oh, here it is. I found it.
Interesting.
They're having the Bruiser Brody Memorial coming up on May 14th. Tell us a Bruiser Brody story, and what did you think of Frank Goodish?
Okay, so uh, that was during the time when I knew Brody, when I was just breaking in and flying from Hobby Airport in Houston to Dallas with Mark Lewin. It's like $25 for a flight. So Mark and I flew. Uh, Frank met us with some friends at the airport to take us to the show. Always a nice guy, always a pro. I don't really have any. I don't really have any stories that. I don't have any stories that I could really say, "Hey, man, this is what we did," and I knew him like the back of my hand. I was just in the locker room with him, and um, a few casual conversations with him and Mark. But you got to admit, he was one of a kind, and we don't have those guys anymore either. That's a shame.
True.
Yeah.
JT88. Was Dusty Rhodes ever in decent shape in his younger days? I want to say yes, but I know
Yes.
you'll know for sure.
Well, yes, definitely. And if you watch some of his younger stuff, man, you can see he really moves. He was always a big guy, but he was in better shape, obviously, in his younger days, and he could uh, very move very well for a guy his size, actually.
I think that Dusty, even though being out of shape, quote unquote, or bigger, in the 80s, I think he could still, wrestle an hour if he needed to against a Flair or Harley or whatever. I mean, he could still go. Bless you. He could still go, even though he was bigger.
Yes, but and again, working an hour, I think is more mental than physical, and you don't learn that until after you do it, and you just breathe. You got to breathe, and part of it is if you're in there and nobody know, and you're in with somebody who's never done an hour, they don't know how to breathe yet. They haven't been through it yet. You have to understand. You still need to be moving, but it's the mental part. Just Dory Funk Jr. once said he did an hour, and back then when the champion would come in, they do an hour. That was his job. And Dory would break it up into 4 15-minute matches. So he knew where he was going. He knew because they would call the times out or get the referee let him know how much time's gone by. He knew where to bring the heat up, knew when to calm it down, knew when they were going to the last 15 minutes of the match. And you need to have, if you go on Broadway, you need to have it where there's some excitement or drama at the end. And, the NWA champion had to know how to work with everybody and anybody. So I think Dusty, certainly, he understood psychology. He understood there's no such thing as a rest hold, but you can rest without anybody knowing, and you can get your breath. And guys like Dusty Rhodes and the Funks, the Briscoes, man, different business. But I admired those guys so much, especially once I got in the business and found out before the match, Jack Briscoe or Harley Race is a world champion. You think they'd be doing squats or push-ups or whatever, and they're taking 2 puffs of their cigarette, put it out, do 1 jumping jack, and say, all right, I'm ready to go. Like, what? And then they go out and do an hour. And here's Harley Race at 265 pounds, taking these backdrops, taking these bumps, and then breathing. Yeah. That was something else that the guys used to do years ago too. Just for what reason, I don't know. But deceivingly in shape were guys like Dusty Rhodes and Harley Race, and a lot of those guys back then. You look at them and say they couldn't go 2 minutes, and they're going an hour Broadway.
Take one final question, almost a comment here from Joey Streets. I think the problem with today's pro wrestlers is that aside from a handful of guys, they just don't have the legitimate tough guy edge that they had in the 80s and 90s.
Well, also, it really is a different culture. Back then, you could sell it as this is the toughest guy in the area. Jerry Lawler's the toughest guy in Memphis. Bruno Sammartino was the toughest guy on the East Coast. He was the world champion. Vern Gagne in Minnesota. But that was when you had the regions and territories. And it was a different I keep saying it, but it was a different culture in the business. It was a different mindset. And you've always had short guys. You've always had smaller guys. But they had to work. And everybody had to work for recognition and a spot wherever they had it. In the 80s, actually before the 80s, the 70s, it was a bigger guy as a wrestler. And people would say, if you weren't this size or you didn't look this way, nobody could buy you as a professional wrestler. And I think it was in the 80s when that really started to change, and so did the world. And it was a youth movement. I remember them saying it was a youth movement when Dory Funk Jr. won the belt when he was 28 years old. And that happened. That was in '69. Then in the 1980s, it happened again with the Von Erichs and the Freebirds and all that. That was taking place. So as you got into the mid 80s and 90s, do away with the commissions. This way you don't have to, nobody has to pass any test or physicals or anything like that. You can open up your own company and you can get a ring and be the top star. So that also added to the issues of not having guys who look legitimate or guys who really took it at least serious enough to make a living at it.
let's head to your book, A Pro Wrestling Curriculum Advice, Suggestions, and Stories to Help the Aspiring Pro Get to the Next Level. Dr. Tom, where can I get the book?
You can get that book at our website at jpwrestlingacademy.com. It's on the front page. Just click the book. It'll take you right to Amazon. You can order it at jpwrestlingacademy.com.
Of course, you can go to Pro Wrestling Tees, ProWrestlingTees.com, go to the JPWA store, or go to the Dr. Tom store. Love the Dr. Tom Wanted Dead or Alive shirt. That one is awesome. Of course, you can check me out at Two Man Power Trip on Twitter and Instagram. Also, you can follow Dr. Tom on Twitter at Dr. Tom Pritchard. Check out my website, tmptempire.com. Dr. Tom, what else you got going on?
Man, we got the seminar taking place this Friday in Lancaster, Ohio. I'm coming up to Deptford, New Jersey, I think the next week, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So another seminar in West Virginia coming up in a few weeks, and we're staying busy. It's going to be a busy summer.
Nice. Great stuff as always. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Herb. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes. And Dr. Tom from D-Rock, he will be back every week. We'll be taking some more of your questions right here. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be right back next week for a little Take You to School with Dr. Tom Pritchard. We'll see you next week.